Hey folks, welcome today. Today I'm very honored. I have a really special guest. I've been a big fan of him for a long time. Here you go.
Hey, it's David Wolfman here. And now I'm originally from Hall Club First Nation, which is just outside of Lillooet. That's where my mom is from, and then she came to Toronto. She came to Toronto and had her family here. So I was been basically born and raised here in Toronto, so downtown Toronto.
Yeah, nice. So just on the other side of the country here, and like I've been a huge fan, like watching you on TV and like your new cookbook.
All right, there it is.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet, man. Like my kids, we have a few of these, and I think they're really drawn to like your presentation, like your overall look on there. And there's a recipe we'll talk about in a bit that I want to
Okay,
try that I want to try with the kids.
excellent.
But I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. It's an honor, and it's so nice that I get to share my voice across the country. I remember when I first started as a young chef. I remember I worked at a takeout counter. That's where I first started. And then staring in the kitchen. So basically, I was just doing takeout work and ordering food from the kitchen. And I remember staring in the kitchen, looking in there, and thinking, looking in the window. And I remember a couple of the cooks used to go, "Quit staring at me," right? But I was just mesmerized that these guys were flying around. It looked like they were doing thousands of meals. It was probably just hundreds. But to me, it looked like thousands. When you're young, I was only 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
And looking in the window of the kitchen was like looking in the window of my future, because I said, that's what I want to do.
Oh man.
And it was after I left there, I actually got a job in a private club downtown that I became a busboy. And then when I was a busboy, it was in this really exclusive place. And the funny thing was, my first day working there, I remember asking the customers left, and I said, they didn't pay for their meal to the waitress. And she said to me, she says, they don't pay till the end of the month here. And I said, well, how do you know they're going to pay? Like, how do you trust them, right? I wouldn't trust them. And she was laughing at me. I'm only 15, 16 years old, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a really nice club, a very high-end French club. So a lot of foods I'd never seen before. They were cooking sweetbreads, lobsters. I'd never seen a lobster. I grew up downtown. I didn't see fresh oysters. I didn't know what they were. I saw these things. They looked like rocks, and I'm going, you can't eat those, can't So it was a great opportunity, because after working as a busboy, I remember saying to the chef, I want to go and work in the kitchen. And the chef was this really mean guy, just screaming, throwing things all the time. And he said to me, if you come and work in here, you have to take your hands out of your pockets. Like, we'll sew your pockets up, right? And you won't have pockets to put your hands in. So you have to do work, right? And I thought it was so funny hearing that. And I
Yeah.
remember when I got my uniform and I put my hands in my pocket, I thought he was going to sew them, but he was just joking, right? And I ended up doing a 4-year apprenticeship there. And that's where I learned my culinary skills, and went to George Brown at the same time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was way back in the 70s. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's how my career started. And as I got into sort of indigenous foods, it wasn't until the late 80s, early 90s that I decided to go to an event that was all indigenous people. I didn't even know there was that many people in the city. And I just volunteered, and people were bringing me all these dishes. I was the only guy in a uniform. And I remember sitting there, and people would say, "Hey, chef, what should I do with this?" And it was just your local community gathering, right? People were bringing moose meat, and I was like taking all the food and asking them, "Oh, I'm going to put them on plates and platters." I had a whole bunch of platters that we had,
Oh
making it
man.
look nice, right? Because it was a potluck. That's all it was a potluck. And I had made a couple of cakes and designed them for them at Graham Greene. It was a Dry Lips play, so Graham Greene was there, and so I replicated the poster, and that was the beginning of my sort of introduction to the community. And from there, I ended up opening up an Indigenous catering company, and that was in '92, and I've never looked back since. Right?
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's I still can't believe I get to talk with the Wolfman.
Hey,
That's awesome.
I'm just a
And
normal guy like you. You know, I get up every morning and eat breakfast. No different, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, I really enjoyed that story. Like all of us in the industry are pretty similar, right?
Yeah.
But like yeah, it's just super exciting to be chatting with you and to hear that. So on another topic, how have you and your family been uh, during these lockdown times?
Well, it was a bit challenging for us. I mean, when I knew that we were going to, our last day of class, I'm a professor at George Brown College. I teach. So it got to one point where they said the school won't be open next week, and my class had finished on the Wednesday. And so Marlene's my wife, we went out on Thursday, got a bit of food. And then I said, she says, we're not going out. We're going to stay home for 2 weeks just in case. And I thought, okay, I need to go out tomorrow because I want to get a few more things. So I went out into Friday and loaded up on a whole bunch of stuff and got, you know, lots of canned stuff. And, you know, I got a freezer. And I started going online, looking at delivery stuff of who would deliver. And anyway, I ended up getting some food. I had a lot of stuff in my freezer. I was still teaching classes because we had moved to classes online. Half my classes are online now. So very smooth transition for me. I've been doing it for like 6-7 years now online. So it was very easy for me to take, you know, half of it was online, half of it was in the class. So just to move it all in, it was not seamless, but a lot easier. I mean, I had to add a lot of components to it. And so we ended up just staying home. And then after about 21 days, my mother-in-law was living in a nursing home, we found out that the virus was spreading in there. So we immediately, within 15 hours of getting that call, got her out and brought her home. So that put another challenge on it because, you know, we thought, okay, here we are, everything's safe. But, you know, obviously you drop everything if you know that there's a, you know, if your mother was, and this is my mother-in-law, but if you know that one of your family members is in danger, you bring them home. And so she's been isolated now, and tomorrow's the last day. So checking her temperature every day.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that's, you know, you have to be careful because this is pretty ferocious, this thing that's going on. So we have been careful. And Marge herself, my mother-in-law, was a nurse for 20 years. So she knows all about, you know, about hospitals and taking temperatures and that. So prior to that, Marlene and I have been doing a lot of cooking. I would take a whole bunch of food out, cook it all up, portion it, freeze it. I also have my dad who's 87. So I've been bringing, you know, every 2 weeks or so, I bring him a whole bunch of food. I made about 15 meals last week, but it's actually been about every week. It's supposed to be 2 weeks, but he runs out of stuff and that. So I'm making sure he has food. I don't want him to go out. He still wants to go out because lives in a very small place, but and he's capable of walking. So he likes walking. And so I've been convincing him just to walk in the staircase, you know, or do something in his building. He lives in a senior's apartment building. So that's what I've been busy doing, that cooking a lot of food, and I'm enjoying it. I have 2 neighbors, one on each side of me. One is 99, my neighbor next door on this side. He's 99. His name is Murray. So I've been buying or bringing over food whenever we make a bunch. I always take a plate, put it on his door handle, and then I'll phone him. You know, that's the way it's a system I have. Put it in a bag, and they got a little hook on the door handle, right? Or the mailbox. And so both my neighbors, I'll phone them and say, I left you a meal out there. And like I know the 2 of them would both want to talk to me. So that's why I just go and then I phone them, right? Because even one of them came out when he was there, and I was like standing back, and he says, don't worry about it. I said, I might be sick. And they went, oh, okay, right? I'm not, and I hope I'm not, and I'm pretty sure I'm not, but I just wanted to make sure that we're safe. So that's what I do. I mean, that's something that my mom's always taught me to do, and that's part of our culture, right? My mom is from BC, right? And part of all of our cultures all across the country here is about sharing, right? So obviously we have to take a lot more precautions when we're doing this. And that's good. So, you know, and it's also a really good time to go in your freezer. And that's one of the things I think that we should do is go in our freezer, see what's in there, and how can we use this up, right? And we took out a ham. My wife bought a ham about a month ago and froze it for Easter. Or actually, it was probably about 6 weeks ago. Like, we weren't thinking that this was going to go on. So she found a ham. We took it and put it in the freezer. And then she said, let's, you know, keep this for Easter weekend, right? You know, we have a couple people over. So we did take it out, and I cut a piece of it off and shared it with my dad. And then the rest of it, we cooked it. And then right now I took the ham bone, I boiled it up all day yesterday after with I left a lot of meat on there, right?
Yeah.
And making a split pea soup for dinner tonight, right? So we have a bunch of split peas. But, just like anybody, I always believe in, if you can cook it at home, great. But, I mean, you and I are probably both busy too. I'm sure there's times that we don't eat things that are always perfect, but this is a great opportunity to do that, to now take things out and not waste anything, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, definitely hands are up to you for teaching all of the up and coming cooks and chefs in our industry, right? And I know it was probably like a challenge to transition, right? And but you guys are still doing it and still going hard. That's so cool. And yeah, just like using everything up. That's good, man.
Well, when I grew up, we grew up in a small place in Toronto here, downtown. And my mom always taught me to, there was nothing we didn't ever, there was no food went bad in our house, right? Never, because we didn't have enough to go bad, right? We brought something, we used it, my mom would chop it up. She'd always have a little pot on the back of the stove where she'd be putting the onions, trimmings, and the celery, and maybe we had chicken, she'd throw some bones in there. And so we made a soup out of it the next day, right? I mean, not always, but a lot of the times my mom would do stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And, when there was no bread, my mom would get the flour out and make up some homemade biscuits, right? So she was always known. And even when I was like 9 years old, I remember I was so hungry and I could smell bread baking in the oven. And I came in the kitchen, and of course my mom says to me, "Hey, what are you doing nosing around here?" And I thought, "Oh, I'm coming to help. I'm coming to help," right? And so she put an apron on me and got a little stool, and I was helping her stir some soup up. And then she took a big piece of bread and she said, out of the oven, and she went, "We better eat this one. This one is broken," right? So we sat there eating it, and that was the beginning of a really cool relationship with my mom, and she made me feel safe in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I would hear all of the stories, and I think that I wouldn't have heard all of those stories, or wouldn't have learned all of those if I wasn't hungry. So I was hungry for food, but she also thought I was hungry for knowledge. So she was really cool in sharing that, right? So that's, that's really where the food thing started, right? And I think this is amazing in the business that we're in, is that we get to share food and share recipes, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. And just like listening to what you're saying, like all of the best cooks out there always had like a similar bond to like our mothers and our grandmothers.
Oh yeah.
And that's where all the passion started. But like since the time, like that's how our teachings were passed down, right?
Yes.
And that really warms up my heart, just hearing stories like that, right? It brings back memories about being in the kitchen with my late grandmother.
Oh yeah.
So it's awesome, man. So what would be one of your guys' favorite dishes recently that you made during the lockdown?
Oh, well, let's see. I got a couple of pictures here. Like yesterday, we had a really nice meal. Today's Wednesday, so this was Monday. Sorry, but I made 3 different meals, and there's 3 of us here, but I don't do that every night. You see, because my mother-in-law, she's 94, by the way, so I make her a little tray for her room, and so this is the one. I don't know if you can see it. I'm gonna see if you can see that.
Yeah.
But I made her, this is with the ham. Or maybe I can tilt it this way. There it is. So I made her a ham sandwich with the ham from the Sunday. I chopped it up and made a little ham salad.
Yeah.
We had scalloped potatoes, which is right on there. It's a little ramekin of scalloped potatoes. And then I give her half a banana, a couple of berries, and then orange juice, cranberry juice. She loves that, right? And so she only eats a half a sandwich because she's a tiny woman. So I made that for her. At the same time, I made, I don't know if that's going to turn sideways or not, but that's a steak that I broiled in my oven, and then a piece of baked salmon with, again, scalloped potatoes and cauliflower. So most of the time we cook the same thing for all 3 of us, but my wife said, "Oh, I don't want to eat any red meat. I don't want to eat any." I thought, and I took out the steaks already. So I said, "You know what? I'll get a piece of salmon." And fortunately, I found this company in Ontario here that has portioned food that's frozen.
Oh,
So you
nice.
buy it already backpacked.
Yeah.
So I bought a bunch of steaks from them. As soon as I heard that this was going on, I called up my friend, and he runs this business. And he said, "Oh yeah, I deliver food." And so I got these 2 packages and a whole bunch of bones too, right? So he's got some. So I got a bunch of bones. I like to make a lot of broth too, right?
That sounds good. And just like thinking about that, like your neighbors are very lucky to have a good neighbor like you dropping food off.
Well, it's funny because one of the guys, he's really fussy. And I remember the first time I said, "Hey, do you want some?" I made lasagna. "Do you want some?" "I don't eat that stuff. I don't eat your kind of food." And I thought, "What do you mean my kind of food, right?" Because he's a picky eater. And, I got no problem with picky eaters. I'm in the industry. So it's, we feed everybody, right? So, I mean, when I was younger, it used to really bother me if people didn't, "Hey, what do you mean you don't want my food?" But there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of what we do, right? So
Yeah.
now on Sunday after we finished our ham and scallop, I phoned him up and I said, "Hey, when was the last time you had scalloped potatoes?" And his wife passed away. I guess it was over 10 years ago now. But he said, "Oh, it's when Valerie was making it for me." And I said, "Oh, hey, I made some. I got so much. I hate to waste them. Can I bring some over?" "Okay." So I brought some over there. Of course, he's sitting there waiting at the door, right? When I brought it. So, but so he's just kind of a guy that's kind of funny that way. And then Murray next door, who's 99, he when I said to him, "Hey, I'm gonna bring some food over," but he cooks his own food. He's 99. He cooks his own food every night, right?
Oh,
And he poaches. He has a poached fish every night, right?
yeah.
Which is pretty cool, right? Poached fish, boiled potatoes, and a salad every night.
Yeah.
And so I brought this over, and he said, "I already had my supper, but I'm gonna have this tomorrow. I'm gonna leave the fish alone for a night, right?" So.
Well, that's huge. And to hear somebody like still going strong at that age, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
a lot of people talk about our indigenous food being medicine, right?
Oh, absolutely. Everything is absolutely everything we put in ourselves, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, like back to your book here.
There it is. Here, let me autograph it for you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Yeah. So one of the things that my boys really love here eating is lasagna,
Oh,
and the one that we came up with was your, I don't know if you can see it.
oh yeah, the
The
easy deer lasagna. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the next run that we go do for food, I'll pick up some venison and stuff to make this.
You can use like say you can't get any venison, you could use lamb or ground beef, mix it with ground pork, even ground chicken you can use. I mean, it's a meat sauce that you're going to be putting in there, right? So if you can't get that, and then the other thing you can do is sometimes you can't get the lasagna noodles, or if you get the ones that are no bake,
Yeah.
you just put them in dry. I don't really like using them because then you have to make sure your sauce is really runny, right? But that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just something you practice with. So
Yeah.
my dad loves lasagna, right? He just he put in his order for next week. He's already telling me, because I'd rather bring him stuff he's going to eat. I
Yeah.
mean, in the summer, I brought him a whole bunch of meals over, and he told me, he says, I didn't eat any of those. I gave them away to a friend of mine because I don't like it. And I thought, well, I'd rather him tell me that, right?
Yeah.
So that way I'm giving him what he wants. So I said, "Tell me what you want." So he says, "Okay, I got a list here," which is okay. I don't mind, right? So he
Yeah.
said he wants lasagna. He likes ham and mashed potatoes, but again, people that are older, they have dentures and stuff. So I mean, I worked in a nursing home for, in 1982,
Yeah.
I worked a year in a nursing home.
Hmm.
So the funny thing was that when I went and took the job at I was 22 years old, 21 years old.
Yeah.
And when I took this job, I took it for 3 reasons. And my 3 reasons were, it was Monday, 10 days straight, Monday all the way through the weekend till Wednesday.
Yeah.
Right. And then you got 4 days off. So that's what I liked. Now
Yeah.
on that Wednesday was payday. So that was my second reason. So they said you get paid and then I'm 21 years old, right?
Yeah.
And you get 4 days off. And because it was a unionized job at that time, I've never had a unionized job.
Yeah.
And I was a manager, as a chef manager.
Yeah.
It was a higher pay, a rate of pay than it was almost $2 more than the minimum wage. So it was nice, right?
Yeah.
At that time, especially, that was $2 was big back then. That would probably be like almost $8 or $10 more than the minimum wage today, if everybody. And then the third thing was that my hours were 10 to 6.
Yeah.
So I could sleep in. And
Nice.
I lived like 4 blocks away. So, so going there at 10 o'clock and leaving at 6, and then I wasn't allowed to serve the food. So I just made the food, got it in the steam table, and that was it. So and that was the 3 reasons why, excuse me, the 3 reasons why I took the job. And, but the thing I didn't realize is that I would learn so much about diabetic puree, dental soft, we had no salt in the kitchens.
Yeah.
And as a cook, you know what this is like as a chef and a cook.
Yeah.
No salt. And I said, well, what do you mean no salt? They said, no, there's no salt. So it taught me to find other ways to make food flavorful.
Yeah.
Because the customers weren't allowed to have salt. So I would take orange peel, right? A zest of orange.
Yeah.
I would have zest of grapefruit. I would have tarragon. I get all of these fresh herbs that you would make and put on chicken, so it had some flavor, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have salt. So I learned that. Plus I learned so much more, not even, I don't want to say accidentally, but without intending to learn, right?
Yeah.
And I still use those techniques today. As a teacher, I teach them, if you don't have much or you can't eat salt, there's lots of other things. And when my mom, when she was alive, she got diabetes, and she brought this whole list to me and said, here's everything I can't eat. And I said, wow. And I said, I thought about it, and so I moved back home with her. I was like 28 years old, and I was cooking all of this food, and she says, I'm not supposed to have this. I said, there's no fat in here, Mom. There's no sugar, right? She goes, no way, it tastes so good, right? So I was able to share some of those things that I did, that I learned, right? And I think that's really what's key of what you and I do, right? Is we take food and we jazz it up and make it taste good and make it look good too, right?
Yeah.
And I love that. I think the best ingredient that we put in our food, the most important ingredient, is passion. I think that's really.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome, and that's something hard to teach, right? And you just went out and experienced it, and that's awesome.
Well, I think that if you do what you love, it's very easy to be passionate about it. If you don't love it, it's not going to last that long, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's so cool. And yeah, like I just love just thinking here, but I love hearing your story, and like you're really inspiring, and just to hear a bit more, like that's huge. So what's your plans for the rest of the evening today?
Well, I have a split pea soup up on the stove cooking upstairs, so I'm going to go and tend to that. I also took out some chicken skewers that I made. I made a bunch of skewers. Yeah. Put a marinade and vac pack them. Yeah. And that way, when I want them, I just take them out and grill them. So I'm going to do that. And a bit of cleaning. That's pretty much it for tonight, because I had 2 classes today. I taught 2 different classes. I had one on sustainability. Yeah. And then I had another one just on food, a theory of food. But because they finished their tests and everything last week, today was just basically a meeting and talking about and showing pictures of food and stuff they did, right? So, nice. I'm also planning, let me see if I can find it here. I'm also planning to smoke some more fish. So let's see if I have my pictures of my fish that I smoked some fish just, oh, I gotta find it here, bear with me. Oh, I passed that already. Is that it there? Yeah. So I got my friend gave me some white fish. So I put it in my smoker and my vac pack machine, and then I dated, right? So what I did is I had 3 whole, very, very large whitefish. I filleted them and then I brined them. And the brine is a really simple brine. It's salt, sugar, water. I use garlic powder. Now, when you're smoking, you can't use fresh garlic, because the acid in there really affects and could actually make the meat go, make the fish go bad, right? So
Oh
you use
man,
garlic powder and onion powder,
nice.
not fresh onions, and because again, it's that acid in there, it's actually in my book, and that's one of my favorite recipes that I have.
Yeah.
And in the book, it's for smoked salmon, right? It's the hot smoked salmon is the recipe. So this is the same one. A little bit of brown sugar, like I said, a little bit of
Nice.
Worcestershire or soy sauce. If you don't have the Worcestershire, soy is all right, and pepper, and that's pretty much it. You let it sit overnight.
Yeah.
And then I take it out, I rinse it off, I pat it dry, and then what I do is I'll take a piece of paper, and like parchment paper, put the fish in, I'll curl up the sides of it so that when it smokes, if there's any water comes off, it stays in that on the fish.
Oh
And then
man.
when I put it in a vac pack, if you look close at this, you'll see around the edges there's a little bit of moisture. And so once you backpack it, then the moisture goes back in the fish in the freezer. So when you take it out. And then the other thing I use this fish for, because this is just, my friend who's a hunter, he went and hunted a big caribou, and then he traded a leg, and he ended up getting 40 pounds of fish with it. So he gives me a whole bunch of it because I'll fillet the rest. I'll fillet his or butcher all of his meat.
Yeah.
And then he ends up giving me, so he doesn't pay me. He just gives me, I want some bones. I want a bit of whatever, if it's elk or caribou, whatever he gets. Last time it was an elk.
Nice.
So then I'll butcher it all up. We have a vac pack machine. Both of us have them.
Yeah.
And because what I do with butchering, like it's inside round, outside round, loins, and we separate them all. And then I'll write right on the package what this is good for. This one's good for skewers. Because I know a lot of people that butcher, they usually go roasts and ground meat. That's it, right? But I do everything. So on the legs, there's the inside claw, the outside. There's any of the meat from around the neck, which is really good for braising. It's got lots of collagen. There's the skirt steaks, that we use. So when I butcher it, it's a complete job of butchering, spreading it out on trays. And then labeling it so it goes right to the right, it gets backpacked properly. And then we know what to cook, right? And and anyway, that's what I do. That's what I like to do, right? So
that's awesome, man. Like just like I'm trying to visualize that. Like I never got to butcher like a whole venison or anything like that when I was in culinary school. We did sides of pigs, and I think we had a small venison, but we had to share that throughout the whole class, right?
Well, it's the same bone structure as a pig, the same structure exactly, or a cow, right? They're identical structures, right? So there's inside, outside rounds. There's the loins on the back, right? There's the brisket, right? So everything is the same. The shank.
Like I think we only had butchering for like 1 month, so like 20 days or something, right?
Where'd you go to school, if you don't mind me asking? I mean, I know you're interviewing me, but I'm going to ask you a couple questions.
Yeah, no worries. I went to Vancouver Community College here in Vancouver.
Okay.
And it was a 12-month program there.
I was there when my book launched.
Yeah.
In October of 2017. I went there for one day. I was just coming through, going from Victoria to there.
Yeah.
I came from Edmonton. I went there, then Victoria, and then Winnipeg, all one day at a time, all across Canada.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. And I stopped at VCC, and they did the food for me.
Yeah.
And it was really cool in that kitchen. So yeah, I teach, obviously, I teach at George Brown College, right?
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. Like I said, I was a student there in 1977.
Yeah.
81.
At VCC?
No, at George Brown.
Oh, okay, George Brown, yeah.
And then I came back in 1994 as a professor, and I've been there since 94 now, right?
Yeah, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a huge fan, and I'm gonna tell the kids to pick out a couple of things. There's a couple places out here where we can get like venison and I think elk. And, I even seen rabbit too. I might try just try to play around in the kitchen, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So with that being said, do you have any tips or tricks that you have for any home cook or foodies out there right now?
Yeah, I think, and it's going to sound strange coming from me because I worked in the bistros, like a in this fast on the line in the restaurant. You open up the fridge, one, two, three. That's on a special. That's on a, and you don't think. You just come up with, you put these things on the table. You tell the waiter or the maitre d', and he writes it on the menu, and then how am I going to cook it, right? But you're going to find a way, right? And that's really good for that style, and I love that style of cooking because that's fun to me. But I think the key is planning, is to make sure you think, take a look at what you have, put it on a table, take a couple of minutes and plan, hey, what am I going to do with this? So, and maybe go online. I had a challenge for my culinary students. I just said to them, what you should do is, and the challenge was, and maybe I could put this challenge out to anybody and they could send it to your Facebook page or mine, is to go in your cupboard, get a few items or freezer, put them on the table, ask somebody. So you get engaged, you ask somebody, maybe call you up or you call me up, or call your aunt up or your cousin, or call Siri up or Siri up, right? And ask them, and then find a recipe, make some substitutions, because you know that right now we can't get everything. And then take a picture of it, cook it up, and if it's really, really bad, eat it quick. If it's really good, show everybody, right? So, if we make a mistake in our industry, right? What do
Yeah.
you do with it? You eat it, right? Unless it's a really bad mistake, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Well,
I think
that's what I tell my kids at school. So I think the key is, my tip is to just have fun. I think that's what it is. And don't worry if it doesn't come out perfect. Right now, this is what we have, right? And and I know in the kitchen, hey, I'm going to make a vegetable soup. Well, I might not have all the vegetables I like to put in there, but
yeah,
this is what I've got, right?
yeah,
So whatever it is, that's what I think. That's really the key. Have fun, enjoy it, and share it, right?
yeah, that sounds awesome. So there you have it, folks. There's a challenge for the day
There you go.
or the day tomorrow, whenever you can find the time.
Hey, can I share my Facebook page and website?
Yeah, for sure.
It's Chef David Wolfman is my Facebook. Chef_Wolfman, I think, is my Twitter. I don't remember. I don't Twitter myself, or Instagram. I think is it. Or just go to my website, cookingwiththewolfman.com, right?
Yeah.
So I've had that website a while. I've had that since 1999.
Since 99. Nice.
Yeah, Cooking
Yeah.
with the Wolfman. Yeah.
And still going strong, man. Like I was saying, like, this is awesome. Me and the kids are super excited, and we're gonna try a few of these things.
Now,
And
you know what else? My TV shows are still on right now. Eh?
yeah,
They're on FNX. FNX is one of the sites,
yeah,
and yeah. So if you go online, and I don't know if you heard of Netflix, right?
yeah.
Everybody knows Netflix. Well, there's also one called Native Flix.
Oh,
Have you heard of
okay.
it?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. So that my show's on Native Flix, right? So
Okay.
yeah.
I'll definitely check that out. I'll check it out, and then I'll post it on my social media too. And I'll share your lasagna recipe from your book that we're gonna try.
Right.
And we'll take some pictures, and I'll tag you in them.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me today. It's been a huge honor. I'm a big fan. I remember watching your show, thinking like, man, like I want to be a chef. I want to be cooking like the Wolfman, right?
Hey, that's fantastic. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And this is a lot of fun. And I'd love to chat with you sometime, and we'll hook up again.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Well, thanks for joining me, and you stay safe and keep cooking.
Okay. Take good care.